Hello everyone, my name is Moji. You're watching a Bitcoin bubble news channel. Tedler had money to begin with, right? With the strong coin. One more going into brain chips and satellites. Musk works on brain chips, satellites, and he may have taken over a social network to get the user data. Right now, he's making it clear that he wants to turn Twitterx into a bank so that he can be a part of the banking system. What's going on there? It's really strange. And then you think about all these PayPal links. Musk is a co-founder of PayPal, so it all makes sense. Hey Bitcoin Bubble family, welcome back to the channel. That was Whitney Webb, author of One Nation Under Blackmail, talking about how Elon Musk is connected to the US using the dollar to take over other countries and eventually control the whole world. In the clip for today, she talks about how the dollar's role as a world reserve has turned it into a weapon that the US has used to gain more power and control over other countries. It goes into great detail about how stable coins fit into all of this and how all of this corruption is linked. Guys, you should watch this all the way through. Feel free to share your ideas in the sections below and think about what might solve all of these issues she talks about in today's video. This is from an interview she did not long ago. Think about how Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies fit into all of this. Let's watch the video now. I thought it was important to remember that the US has gone to war and killed millions of people to protect the petrodollar system, which is how the dollar has been kept as the world's reserve currency. There were probably more than one reason for attacking Iraq, but I think this was one of the main ones. Saddam Hussein started selling oil in euros instead of dollars not long before the attack and made a lot more money. He did this to show other OPEC members that they could make more money selling in currencies other than the dollar. And then there was Libya in 2011. Gaddafi was trying to switch to a currency backed by gold called the dinar, which he sold to African countries. A lot of them either used dollars or French money. That's why the US and France basically led that regime change operation, which had terrible results for Libya. It went from being the safest country in Africa to the most dangerous, and it has been used as an example of, or a reason for how immigration got so out of hand in Europe after that. In some situations, the US government, or rather the US power, is ready to do anything to protect the dollar. They knew they couldn't keep this up forever, and that the world would eventually move away from oil. So the idea that they would just sit back and let dollarization happen without having some kind of plan in place was crazy. I believe it's important to remember that these people have been very serious, played very hard, and made things to keep the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Which gives the US a lot of benefits, would be to allow crazy turmoil. I'm sure they want to keep those benefits, even if it means using a different method. From a bigger picture point of view, economic warfare has been going on for a long time against countries like Argentina, Lebanon, and many others around the world. Argentina shows how it's done. One could say it started in the 1970s and 1980s. In terms of economic policy, some of the decisions Argentina made when it was a military regime were completely crazy. Carlos Menem was a conservative who was in charge of Argentina in the 1990s. I thought he was poor for the country. Their economy then crashed in 2001, which again you could say was a direct result of many of those policies, both during the regime and during Menem's presidency. Then there are groups like the IMF and all of these others. They try to get Argentina to do things like debt for land swaps and debt for resources swaps after the economy crashed in 2001. This has been going on for a long time, and not just in Argentina. It's a resource grab that involves a lot of places in Latin America. The engineers who did that specifically. And by wiping out Latin America's debt in the 1980s and 1990s, it was a way to connect Latin America to the US and to many global economic interests based in the US, such as Wall Street banks. A lot of this was planned by them. So what's going on in Argentina now didn't just appear out of thin air. It's clear that Argentina's central bank is to blame, but it didn't happen by itself. The people who made those decisions were presidents who chose who would run the central bank. Even Milei, who has said bad things about Argentina's central bank, put a former head of the central bank in a top position in his cabinet. As someone who has lived in Argentina and written about politics there, these are the decisions that politicians have made. They just don't get the corruption there. People in power in Argentina don't even try to hide how dishonest they are. There are times when it's so obvious that I've never seen anything like it anywhere else in the world. I really believe that what's happening in Argentina was planned to be that way. Yes, those people may need stable coins because of the way the economy is right now. They were put in that situation by engineers, and who then gains from that? I would say that the same people made both the problem and the answer. I only have a few words to add about money. I agree with Mark that a big part of the point is to make steady coins more like the dollar, and some Latin American countries have become dollarized in the past. El Salvador is one case of Ecuador. And when those countries become dollarized, they lose control over their own money and have to follow what the Fed decides. A lot of bad things happen because of that. This is an attempt by the same people who planned the events in Ecuador and El Salvador to impose the same thing on Latin America. However, it doesn't seem like too much dollarization when it comes to stable coins that aren't directly linked to the US government but are, say, linked directly to the US Treasury system. And then there are some of these companies that zap or are linked to that are also backed by the business that is the focus endeavor. Of this article, like Satellogic, which was also a big part of our last article, debt from above. When you look at Satellogic's board, you can see that Steve Mnuchin used to be the head of the Treasury Department. You have Howard Lutnick from Cantor Fitzgerald, who is one of the most important guys in the Treasury system, right? The Rohatyn Group also has someone there. Nick Rohatyn is the name of the Rohatyn Group. He was in charge of J.P. Morgan's Latin American debt policies in the 1980s and made the bank a lot of money while making the Latin American debt problem worse than it is now. So why are all those people, say, on the board of the satellite company? Also, why do these people keep showing up at Zappo? As an example, why are all of these people who work with safe coins like PayPal and PYUSD so deeply in debt? Those who use PayPal. If you think about it, there are so many things that fit together that it's hard to just dismiss as random.